Welcome to the Inner Coach Podcast, where it's not about me, but about you, about your journey, about your potential and your ability to create the life and business you've always dreamed of. For over 2 decades, I've been on a quest to find the tools and the insights that can transform not just my own life and business, but those of my clients as well. And now I'm here to share that knowledge with you, to be your guide, your companion on this journey of growth and discovery. Because I believe that true success comes from being prepared, mindful, and real, not scripted and perfect. So join me and let's explore the strategies, the mindset, and the habits that will enable you to thrive in both business and in life. Together, we'll learn how to be more present, more authentic, and more intentional in everything we do. Subscribe now and join me on this adventure of growth and self-discovery. On today's podcast, we're talking about disappointment and how we can deal with disappointment so we can access our true potential. But before we start, we need to define it. Just like any emotion, we really need to define it so we know what we're working with. If we misidentify an emotion, then it's really difficult to apply the right strategies and do the work so we can move through it. When we identify the correct emotion, we can resolve it and we can access more of our true potential. So the definition I'd like to use is from Brené Brown's book, The Atlas of the Heart. And it's an amazing book that enables you to identify and make distinctions between the thousands of different emotions that we have. And it's a really good book. I use it pretty much in every single coaching call to help my clients identify what are the emotions that are holding them back and how to work through it. So her definition of disappointment is unmet expectations. The more significant the expectation, the more significant the disappointment. We have a really active imagination. And that imagination is constantly projecting into the future. It's creating movies in our mind of what's going to happen next. And those movies are kind of like our model of our internal world. Then on the other side of things, we have the real world and what actually happens. When what actually happens doesn't meet the movie that we have for what we expected to happen, we experience disappointment. And in her research, Brené has found that most people experience disappointment as a discomfort rather than painful. Painful emotions might be deep sadness, anguish, depression, or anxiety. Whereas disappointment is just discomforting. So why should we care about this emotion? Roger Federer is probably the greatest player of all time. And when he was accepting the honor at a university, he asked the students, what was the percentage win rate of all the points that he'd ever played throughout his career? The answer is so surprising. He only won 54% of the points that he played in his whole career. Yet he won 80% of his matches. That is incredible when you think about it. The best player in the world loses almost half of every single point he plays. Now imagine if he couldn't deal with disappointment. Do you think he would have won 80% of his matches? No way. He'd have been carrying that disappointment around with him. Every point itself wouldn't weigh much, but it would be like adding a kilo to a weighted vest that he was wearing. At the end of his first tournament, that could weigh 30, 40 kilos. The next tournament, 120 kilos. The next tournament, 240 kilos. And he's only 3 tournaments in. Disappointment is often compared to death by 1,000 cuts. If we don't learn to effectively manage our disappointment, there's no way that we can learn from our mistakes. There's no way how we can learn how to hone our strengths and overcome our weaknesses. Because to do that, you need to be present in the moment. You need to make the point that you're playing right now the most important point in the world. What I'm saying is the next thing on your to-do list, the thing that you're going to do right now, is the most important thing. Listening to this video and getting the learnings out of it is the most important thing to you in the world. But if you don't perform at your best, say you lose track or you get distracted, you don't want to carry the disappointment. Oh my God, I didn't listen to what I said. Now my life's ruined, right? As if you would. But you get my point. You've got to be able to move on. And that's what Roger Federer did. He said, hey, every point I've ever played in my career is just a point. Even the shots that made the greatest shots ever were just a point to him, because that mindset allowed him to let go of what happened and focus on what was going to happen next. So if you want to tap into your potential, if you want to really discover what you're capable of, you really need to learn how to process and do the work so that you can let go of disappointment in your life. I took my daughter to the park the other day to teach her how to ride her bike. And I had this movie, this expectation of what it was going to be like. It was going to be a magical father-daughter bonding moment, and she was going to learn to ride, and she was going to remember this moment forever. But what really happened? Well, it started off well. We got to the park, we got set up, we were meeting our friends there, but we got there early. And to prepare, I'd been watching some YouTube videos on how to teach kids how to ride their bike because I wanted to be prepared. And I did an exercise that helps her stop herself from falling by putting her foot down. So what you do is you hold the bike between your legs with the front wheel, and you hold on to the handlebars, and they sit on the bike, and then feet on the pedals, and then you let go, and then they catch themselves whichever way that they're falling, and they build confidence that if the bike leans over too far, that they can put their foot down and stop themselves. She nailed it. My expectation, my movie, and real life were aligned. So like, great, let's move on to the next step. The next step was basically putting her onto the bike path, holding onto the back seat and the front, and pushing her along, or holding her while she pedaled and running along. All good. She started doing that. Now, this is where things started to get a little tricky. You see, my expectation was that we would do this for 30 to 45 minutes. Yeah, I know, not the smartest tool in the box right now, right? She's 5. I don't think she does anything for 3 minutes. So, of course, after like 25 seconds, she sees the park and other kids playing in the park, and she wants to stop riding her bike because she's bored of that now and wants to go and play with the other kids. So she puts the bike down and runs off. So obviously now I'm experiencing what? Disappointment. Brené Brown says in her book, Atlas of the Heart, that there's 2 types of expectations we need to be aware of. I need to read my notes. There's expressed and examined expectations. So these are the expectations that we're aware of, that are consciously examined and expressed, at least to ourselves and maybe to other people. So my expectations were that we were expressed, and examined expectations were that we were going to the park and we were going to learn to ride, and we were going to work together as a team to teach her how to ride. Okay? Problem was that my examined expectations with her I was expecting her to act a certain way, to be patient, to put in the reps or the 45 minutes that YouTube tells you you need to teach your kid how to ride. Clearly wasn't going to happen. The other type of expectations that we have are unexpressed and unexamined. These are what Brené calls stealth expectations, and they are a real killer. Most of our disappointments are actually because we have expectations that not even ourselves are aware of. She gives a great example when she goes to Disneyland on holiday with her family, and she packs like 10 or 15 books, I can't remember. And she has this conversation with her husband where she goes, oh my God, what am I doing? I've got children. We're in Disneyland. The only thing I'm going to be reading is how tall the kids need to be to get on the rides. That's a real killer, especially in relationships. We have lots of unexamined and unexpressed expectations of our partner. like how they should love us, how they should care for us, what they should do for us. And we experience disappointment. One of the ways that we can deal with this is by asking ourselves, whenever we set out on a holiday or an adventure or the weekend, ask ourselves, what do we want from this weekend? What are my expectations? Have I set myself up for success? In that way, like I did with my daughter, had I really set myself up for success, or was my movie that I was playing in my mind so far away from reality that I was making disappointment a reality? So they're the two types. And I'm going to do another episode on how to manage stealth expectations and expressed expectations or explored expectations when somebody else doesn't follow through for you. But let's get back. How do we deal with disappointment when it happens? I've got some amazing tools and I can't wait to share them with you. But first of all, I just want you to think back to this morning. Think back to the beginning of today. How many disappointments have you experienced already? And how many of those disappointments are you still carrying? How many of them have distracted you from doing outstanding work or showing up as your best or just simply being present in the moment? Just take a second to write those down. Pause the video and just do it for 1 second right now. If you do this work, it'll help you get the most out of the time that you've invested in watching it. Did you do it? All right, let's get back into it. So the first philosophy I want to give you is the wisdom of the Zen farmer. Now, I got this from an amazing client. He's started multiple successful startups. He's currently working on a really exciting one in real estate and AI, and he's got backing. But as an entrepreneur, he has to deal with disappointment every day. Right? You got to try lots of things as an entrepreneur until you find that thing that's going to work, that's going to create that hockey stick growth that you're looking for. So you've got to be able to let go of every point you play so you can focus on the next opportunity that you have in front of you. And he does that by having a poster on the wall. And on that poster is a story of the Chinese farmer who refused to judge the events in his life as good or bad. In the story, his horse runs away. And all the villagers say to the farmer, "Oh my gosh, how terrible. Your life is going to be so hard now." And he just smiles and says, "Maybe." The next day, the horse returns and brings with it 4 wild horses. Wow, right? Great. Now he's like rich. And people are like, "This is amazing. Your life's going to be so great now." And he says, "Maybe." The next day, his son is training one of the wild horses and he falls off it and breaks his leg. Now he's got to do all the farm work himself. He can't rely on his son to help him. The villagers go, "Oh my gosh, your life's going to be terrible. It's so bad." And he smiles and says, "Maybe." On the final day, a warlord comes through the village and takes all the young men to form an army. And of course, doesn't take the farmer's son because he's injured. You see, when you refuse, like the farmer, to judge the events in your life as good or bad, it frees you up from suffering or discomfort. And you can focus on what's most important, the thing that's in front of you right now, the field that you need to plow, the email that you need to send, the video that you need to make. The next philosophy and strategy for dealing with disappointment comes from my amazing partner, Gemma. And she found it on Matthew McConaughey's Instagram feed. And it's actually something that he learned from his amazing mum, who has this incredible energy and love for life and passion. And she has this saying that anytime that you deal with disappointment, you say to yourself, turn the page. Right? What she's saying is, hey, what has happened in life has happened. That page has already been written. That ink is dry. You can't go back and rewrite it. You can't change it. So you might as well turn the page and start afresh, start a new page. Matthew McConaughey talks about how she uses it with his kids when they've been caught out doing something wrong and they get punished, and how she helps them move on from, the guilt and the shame and maybe the disappointment of not being able to play computer games and focus on what they do have, what they are able to do by turning the page. What I also really like about this idea is that it's a signal, a command that we can give ourselves to say, hey, let's let go and move on. Mel Robbins is somebody I follow on Instagram, and I love her work. And she kind of came to popularity by promoting this idea of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If there's anything that you've got to do, you say to yourself, you count down to 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and when you get to 1, you do it. And it's a neat technique that kind of switches your brain into action. It puts a little bit of pressure, a little bit of drive going forward. And turning the page is the same. It's like a metaphor of of the clock counting down from 5 to 1. It's a metaphor that the mind understands. It's symbolic when we use phrases like turning the page. And the brain understands symbols so much more than it understands words. So next time you're dealing with disappointment, say to yourself, hey, time to turn the page, time to write a new chapter in my life. The last philosophy I want to give you comes from my friend Gareth, who's also a client, and he's the CEO of a huge organization. And when you're running an organization that big, it's impossible to avoid disappointment. There's no chance that everything that happens in that business is going to match his movie of what should happen. So I asked him, said, how do you deal with disappointment on that scale? And he said, it's simple, Alex. I take total accountability. When something disappoints me, I accept it, I learn from it, I take action on it. And that's really smart. When I was working for an organization, I was asked to do a workshop with another coach, and we put on an amazing sales workshop with about 14, 15 new employees, and we had a lot of fun. But 2 days later, I got a call from my boss saying that the colleague that I'd run the workshop was really unhappy and disappointed with how I behaved in the workshop. I was devastated. I thought that we were both had so much fun, and I know that the participants did. But it turned out that I hadn't really checked in with her and seen her what she wanted to deliver and give in the workshop, and she'd felt like I'd taken over. So I took total accountability here. I said to myself, well, next time I do a workshop with a colleague, what do I need to do? And I thought, we talked about what the result was that we wanted for the participants, but I didn't talk about what the results that she wanted for herself, for her development as a coach. And if I'd done that, I would have realized that there were exercises and things that she wanted to do with the team that would have helped her become a better coach. And she would have got the experience that she wanted. And we could have talked about us leading different parts of the workshop. So I make a point now, anytime I'm running a workshop with another coach or facilitator, to really ask them, no, what do you want to get from the experience for yourself, not just for our clients? All right, it's time to do a little bit of work. Go back to that list of disappointments that you made earlier and ask yourself, what strategies do you want to apply? Do you want to use the wisdom of the Zen farmer and refuse to judge what happens to you as good or bad? Or do you want to just turn the page? Do you want to realize that what has happened has happened? You cannot rewrite history, but you can write your future. Or do you want to take total accountability and learn from what happens and apply those learnings in your life? You can apply all three. Whatever you do, make sure you do something, because the weight of disappointment is going to hold you back. When you do this work, you discover who you truly are. If you got value from this, then please like, comment, and share and support the channel, whichever platform you're watching this on. And if you're keen on being able to step back from life so that you can work on yourself, get out into nature, and discover what you're truly capable of, then join us on the Pathfinders Retreat at the end of July. We are going to create a vision for our lives. We're going to tap into our purpose. We're going to align to our strengths, make plans to overcome our weaknesses so that we can be more and give more to the people that we care about, our friends, our family, and our customers. Until next time, remember, you're outstanding, and don't let anybody tell you otherwise.